I'm Emily Hayes, senior writer with Script Publication, here at the Biotech Showcase at the Hilton Hotel in San Francisco. I'm here with Susan Cantrell. She is the CEO of the Academy of Managed Care Pharmacy. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Emily.
Could you tell us a little bit about the AMCP?
Sure, happy to. AMCP is a professional society of over 8,000 members who are involved in managing the pharmacy benefit for over 270 million Americans who are covered by a pharmacy benefit. So our members include physicians, pharmacists, nurses, and others who collectively are involved in managing medications for populations covered by health plans and other organizations.
And this week, of course, San Francisco is hosting the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference and the Biotech Showcase. And is this an event you regularly attend?
Not always, but it is the epicenter of healthcare this week, so it's important that we be here. Payers are a major part of the equation, and as we look at new technologies coming to market, new payment models and benefit design needed for those, we think it's important that we be part of the conversation. So I'm excited to be here this week.
And so what's a typical day like for you?
Meetings, lots of one-on-one meetings. We have a number of members who attend this conference, and so it's important that we connect with those members while we're here, as well as the multiple panels and presentations that are happening here. There's much to learn in San Francisco this week about healthcare, so it's very exciting.
As usual, there's a lot of discussion about the need to balance the intent to encourage innovation, but also to have access for patients and not to price drugs in a way that's unaffordable for them. Do you have comments on that, and what are your positions on that?
So we're all struggling now with how we continue to pay for healthcare and how we afford many wonderful innovations coming to market right now. It's amazing to think that we now have technologies, medications, and other types of therapies that can cure or manage diseases that previously might have been incurable or life-threatening. So it's an exciting time in medical innovation, but as we all know, healthcare costs, and especially healthcare costs in the U.S., are rising significantly, and so we're all under pressure to do something about it, which is where managed care pharmacy comes in. We have tools, strategies, and proven methods that will help ensure that patients get the therapy they need while managing our scarce healthcare resources.
And we now have gene therapies that are in late stages or approved, and they're going to be very expensive. There's talk about installment payment models. What do you think are the most promising new innovative payment models for these new expensive therapies?
So AMCP and our members have done quite a bit of work in this area. And as you well know, there are a number of strategies that are being recommended, installment payments, other annuity payments, other types of models that are being recommended. So I don't think there's one magic method out there. I think it's a time of exploration and testing. We know that the benefit design and the payment models that we have today don't always fit these new innovations. So we need to come up with new and better methods. And I think one of the ways that we'll do that is by some level of experimentation to actually see what works, what's sustainable. But at the heart of any of these is ensuring that we assess the value that they deliver, not only to the individual patient, but also to the healthcare system, and determine how we will provide payment for those based on that assessment of value.
Once again at JP Morgan and the Biotech Showcase, we're seeing tweets by politicians, including Donald Trump, drawing attention to the high cost of drugs. Is that going to have any real-world impact now, do you think?
Well, obviously there's a tremendous amount of attention. I don't remember a time since I've been in the profession of pharmacy that we've had as much emphasis on the cost of pharmaceuticals and managing that cost. So the administration has put forward a number of policies and made some changes to try to address that. And we are seeing some action taken, some impact happening, and I think the dialogue is critically important. In the run-up to the 2020 elections, we're likely to see a number of new proposals coming out, so I think it's healthy dialogue and debate, and again, we need to look at ways to come up with important solutions that ensure, as you mentioned earlier, patients have access to therapy, but we also are being stewards of our healthcare resources.
What are the top issues on the AMCP's agenda for 2019?
Well, top of mind for us is what you just mentioned, overall healthcare costs, not just the cost of pharmaceuticals, but healthcare costs in general. We talked about new treatment modalities, and in some cases, these are curative. So they might be very expensive. We might even be talking about very expensive medications, but if they're curative and deliver value to patients and to the healthcare system, then they're worth that expense. So looking at how we advocate for real changes that can help us address the rising cost of healthcare is really important. One of those things, and one area that we've been working on quite a bit, is biosimilars and the role that biosimilars can play in our healthcare system here in the U.S. As you know, we've had a pathway in place. We had our first biosimilar approved in 2015, but marketplace uptake has been slow, and in some cases, getting these products to market has been slow. So we've been looking closely at that, and we're actually conducting research through our BBCIC research consortium on biosimilars and biologics. We think that's a really important area. Also, looking at evolving payment models, we've long been advocating for this shift that's taking place across our healthcare system away from just paying for volume, but really paying for value. And part of that includes our assessing in the real world the impact that these treatments are having. So real world evidence, being able to analyze and look at patient outcomes and really reward value over the previous volume-based approach to payment.
There has been some discussion about whether payers will accept real-world evidence in making coverage decisions. To what extent is that being done now, and how much more will that be done in the future?
AMCP members, I'll tell you, are clamoring for this information, and we have a number of organizations that we are working with at AMCP who are involved in, for example, value-based contracting. And value-based contracting between payers and manufacturers really requires you to collect and analyze real-world data because the payment is based on how the therapies really perform in the patient populations. So our members are advocates of having real-world evidence, collecting that, and using it to the full extent in making coverage determinations, as well as helping to select which patients are right for these new innovative therapies, matching the patient to the therapy and vice versa.
Do you think that the Institute for Clinical and Economic Review will continue to play a big role in how the value of therapies is assessed?
Well, certainly ICER is important now, and its prominence has increased over the last couple of years. And we at AMCP look at value frameworks, not only ICER, but other methods of assessing value. And our perspective on that is that value assessment, including ICER's reports, are a tool in the toolbox. So when you're looking at, you look at clinical evidence, you look at economic evidence, and to the extent possible, you look at value. Although we would say there's no one perfect model, we don't. If there is, we haven't seen it yet. But we do think that value assessment is an important part of how we manage our healthcare resources. But it's just, again, one tool that we have at our disposal.
And how important is rebate reform as an issue?
That's an important issue, and I think it will be very interesting to see how that plays out. There have been some proposals put forward on the rebate reform, but I think the most important thing is the rebate methodology is pretty ingrained in our payment now, and how contracts are negotiated, how payment is negotiated, and we don't really right now know if that changes, what might replace it. So we believe that thorough study and experimentation is going to be needed before any significant changes are made, just to ensure that we don't have unintended consequences.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.